Hey guys, this is Brian Sykes with AI Explore. My internet went out last night due to a big storm that came through on the East Coast. So I decided this morning, since I don't have internet access, to just kind of jump in and do something in Adobe Illustrator. So even though this is AI Explore, I guess we can deviate a little bit and go towards Adobe Illustrator. And I want to show you something kind of fun. So what you're seeing right here is using the Inflate feature of 3D materials inside of Adobe Illustrator, and this was one that I just kind of created playing with that concept. Obviously, along with the letters, I've added these little balloon elements at the bottom with string just to kind of create a fun little effect. And so what I want to do is walk you through that process of how you could create this for yourself if you've never used the Inflate feature inside of Adobe Illustrator. So without further ado, let me go ahead and jump to my next panel. I've already got this text pulled up, and this is some standard text that I've deviated ever so slightly. Now, how do I actually get this? So let me walk you through that process. So we'll just start with the word blob. Now what you'll notice is this is significantly different here to here. So how did I create this shape? First thing I'm going to do is, you do not have to do this to do the inflate. So let me make that clear. But I kind of like the idea of blobbing out my text a little bit if I'm going to turn it into a balloon. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to do Object Expand, which will now break apart my individual letters and allow them to be individually managed. Now also I want to do Ungroup, Command Shift G, so that's Object Ungroup on the Mac. And so now each individual letter can be selected. Okay, so what can we do here? Well, there's several things you can do. One thing you can do is you can use the little angle tool. So this is usually found where you see pen tool and anchor points and things. So this is the anchor point tool, and it allows me to go in and grab the individual points and manipulate them. That's one option. Another thing we can do is this tool right here, which is called the Blob brush. Okay, with the Blob brush tool, we're able to actually go in with a letter selected and basically blob out the shapes that we want to kind of manipulate. So I can go in here and literally begin painting the shape to expand it or blob it out a little bit. And we can do that with each of our letters. Again, this is not perfect, but that's really the intent, is I don't necessarily want it to be perfect. I want it to have a little bit of personality. And by deforming the shapes of the letters, we get a little bit more of that personality. Okay, so here now we can see each of the individual letters have been manipulated just by using that Blob brush tool. Okay, so what next? Well, with each of these things, they're still really rough, but notice what mine above here are really refined. So here's how we can do that. I can select the individual letter, and I can go under Object, Path, and we've got Simplify and Smooth. Both of these are great tools for kind of getting a more polished look. With Simplify, it basically gets rid of a lot of the extraneous points and finds a way to do that without as many segment points. I'm going to use Smooth, and you'll see it shows a jagged edge with minimum smoothing, and then it shows over here a maximum smoothing. It's very rounded. So what I can do is just begin moving towards this middle point, and you can see the effect on the letter itself. Okay. There we go. Those are great. So now I've got Blob and Blob, and I kind of like the way this second one turned out. So I'm just going to remove this one for a second, move it over here, and take my Blob that I like. Now, I've got a couple little dots in here that I really don't care for. So I'm going to zoom in on those. And you simply want to get rid of these points, because these will show up when you're trying to inflate your shape as pinch points, almost like there's little stitches there. Okay, so here's Blob. Now, I recommend typically when you're working with this to go ahead and make it larger before you create a three-dimensional effect on it. This is fine. This size actually, let's see what my text size was. I don't even remember. 200 points, so it's a pretty significant size. Okay, so with my text selected, I want to choose a color, do something that's kind of fun, and I'll go with this blue. And underneath 3D and materials, you can get that by go to Effect, 3D and Materials, and all of these options are what you're seeing over here on this navigation bar, this little pop-up. So the one I'm interested in is going to be Inflate. So that's the same if I went over under 3D Materials and just clicked on Inflate, and this is what we're getting. Now you've got a number of options underneath here. There's Object, Materials, Lighting, and then this last thing over here is for rendering. For Object, the first thing is it determines the depth, or how deep the three-dimensional object is. So when we apply depth, it's basically going to extrude it this way. You do not see it so much when you're looking at it from this angle. I can take it to 704 points and it still looks about the same. You're starting to see a little bit of a shadow in there. But the reason is because this thing is literally, you're looking at it straight on, but it's been expanded this way. So if we rotate this in freeform, I'll show you, see the shape, how thick it is. So we don't want to go that far in our depth. So I'm going to take this back to 0. And I'm going to go ahead and leave this at 0 as well. So X, Y, and Z, I'm going to leave it in the 0 range. Now, X, Y, and Z coordinates, of course, is going to be rotating in 3D space. We'll just kind of leave it for now as just it is. Now, twist is this kind of neat little feature which allows you to do a slight twist to the 3D shape. Not really a big fan of that in regards to what I'm trying to work with right here. So I'll leave it at 0. And taper is set to 100%. But taper does, you can kind of see what it's doing there with regards to the holes and things that are there. Leaving it at 100% kind of leaves things open, and it allows you to keep that shape just like you like it. And volume is kind of how much you inflate it. So at 100%, it really blobs it out. And inflate both sides means it's basically going to round out the backside as well, not allow it to have a flat surface. Okay. And then, again, as I mentioned before, rotate. You can look at this from different angles. And of course, all of these, when you're looking at them, you're kind of getting some different perspectives on this thing. So this is kind of fun. Off-axis front, it allows you to still see it, but it's kind of rotated ever so slightly. You can kind of play with this and choose the one you want. I'm going to stick with front. Now, under materials, I'm going to stick with the base material default. But you'll see that there's actually a number of options that are available for playing with, from spotted concrete, scroll on down here, there's natural, bucata, snake leathered, fine leather, sandstone, gold, hammered steel. There's all these kind of things, wax paint, which is kind of interesting. And this is trial-stucco, so this kind of gives you that stuccoed look. None of these are really the balloon shape that I'm looking for. This creased plastic film is kind of interesting. This kind of looks like, I don't know, it looks kind of strange. But I'm going to leave it back at the base material because it gives me the most balloon look. Then the last thing you've got under here is lighting. Now, I did skip over graphics, but graphics are where you can actually apply a graphic to your three-dimensional shape. I'm not going to do that right now. Lighting allows me to choose between standard, diffused, top left, and right lights. And with this, you can actually adjust the position of the light, and you can see in real time how it adjusts itself on our three-dimensional object as well. Okay. And if you scroll down underneath this, you'll see you can actually adjust the color of the light. So we could come down here and give it a really punchy teal color if we wanted to. We could make it more orange. And the color that we choose, it's going to use that as a reference color to be applied to our shape. So I'll stick with this kind of tealy blue. You can change the intensity of the color or the intensity of the light of that color. And also underneath, you have the option of shadows. Now with shadows, you've got distance from the object, and well, the first is position, whether you want it to be behind the object or below the object. And then you have the distance from the object, how far it extends from the object itself, and this is based off of the lighting and the shadows that are occurring. the lighting on where it's hitting, and then where that would apply the direction of the shadows. And the shadow bounds allows you to expand how much area around the shadow is free. In other words, if you have the bounds kind of tight, then the shadow, if it runs into that bound, I'll pull this in and show you, it actually gets cut off. So expanding the shadow bounds allows it to go beyond that space. All right. Now, one thing I don't like is it does not allow you to adjust the lighting or the shadow value except for just by adjusting the lighting itself. The last thing, of course, is going to be the render availability. So with that, clicking this, it simply applies the render, and that's pretty much it.